Alright, good morning. So I wanted to talk about three of my possible starters for the Grim Dawn League before patch hits, if like there's a new item or some of these items are completely nerfed, which these are all base items for the Mage Hunter. Um, the Battle Mage, three of the items are new, and the Archon is based on quite a few new items, and if there's something that's like really cool that comes off that I'll probably want to play, you never know. But first is the Mage Hunter. This is a very safe pick. The problem is it's slow. It does not have a movement skill. I mean, it kills things incredibly fast. Like, it will clear the map very easily. Um, the reason I have two of the same one is because I have different devotion setups. Like, this is a Rune of Callister base Mage Hunter using Word of Pain and Stormbox as kind of side damage moves. Um, and just utility from the Arcanist. Um, and the same thing. This one's the exact same thing. Like Stormbox, Word of Pain, Rune of Callister. The difference between these two is there's different types of devotions. Like, if I want to stick with Rune of Callister, this would be the devotion setup because I don't need Rowan's Crown. But if I wanted to go into something like Lightning Kalidor's Tempest or like a Stormbox build later on, um, this would not be the play. But this is actually a pretty solid one. It gets Light of Empyrean. It's pretty tanky. Like, it's set up to be pretty tanky. Um, on all Cold and Lightning builds, I really love to get Tsunami, because most Cold and Lightning builds do not come with Fumble and Impaired Aim, and just having Fumble and Impaired Aim is a huge defensive layer. And the biggest problem is it costs another skill, and it costs 2 extra devotion points, so it's kind of hard to fit in a lot of builds. In this version of it, rather than going up to Light of Empyrean, we go down to Crab and Rowan's Crown. So we use Crab as our extra defensive layer here. We also do not get the Guardian in this version with the Crown. But Guardian's pretty nice. Like, it's a pretty big like kind of damage thing, and it also has that Confuse, which helps a little bit for damage stuff. Overall, like, this one's pretty solid. There's not going to be much health on these builds. And the defensive-based one, which is Rune of Callister, is looking at only 1,000 lightning damage. I didn't put any augments on, so it's like what 15, 25. So it's like 1,400 lightning damage. That's not so bad. And the electrocute damage is probably close to 1,000. That's not so bad. Whereas the offensive one that doesn't need it because of the shield is looking at what, 1,700? Yeah, it's about it's like 1,600, and the electrocute damage is like 1,200 or 1,100, something like that. So it's more damage to go this way. 12% Fizz Res versus 15% Fizz Res. More CC Res on this one too, though. I think. No, it's about the same, actually. Though this one does have more offensive ability. Like, starting before having any things. This is, again, super base gear. There's nothing on this gear. I also didn't put components on here. I'm not entirely sure I would start this build, just because it's so basic. Like, it's something you can play in the base game, minus these gloves. And the gloves are just nice because they give total speed and flat elemental damage, as well as points to Inferno. But I'm not using Inferno, so it's kind of like, meh. The next build I'm thinking about is the Aether Battle Mage. Using the Reckless Power two-handed weapon and focusing on this helmet, the Flesh Mask. which gives more Fizz Res to Reckless Power, as well as turns Force Wave into Aether. It gives reduced resistances to Force Wave. Converts all physical and chaos damage to Aether damage. Gives me 4% attack damage converted to health. 50% of vitality converted to Aether. 50% of lightning converted to Aether. Use this pendant thing to give me more flat Aether damage, as well as converting acid to Aether, and another convert chaos to Aether, which doesn't really matter so much. And then this one down here, which gives chaos damage to Force Wave, which is converted to Aether, and crit damage to Force Wave. Fire damage converted to Aether, lightning damage converted to Aether. I don't really care that much, but this basically just gives me flat damage to Force Wave, and it's a percent Aether pendant too. Getting the percent like this. This is the one I'm really thinking about starting. It's a spam Force Wave build, focusing on Aether. Cast speed is 158%. Don't care about attack speed, but attack speed is 182%. Having the 15% attack speed to Reckless Power is nice, I guess, but it doesn't really help anything because Force Wave is a cast speed ability. So I could probably hopefully get cast speed somewhere else. And then my Aether damage modifier is 1800 without anything on the gear. Like, yeah, this is I put components on here on this one because I was actually really liking the idea of this build. It starts with only 15% Fizz Res, which is not bad. And looking at the skills, it's like maxing out Force Wave except for Internal Trauma. Just one pointing this because this essentially does jack shit for this build because you can't convert Internal Trauma to Aether. Reduce damage with this. Might take 2 points out of this to reduce it a little bit more. And this is just 1 point for the Skill Disrupt. 1 point in this just to have, another toggle thing. 3 points here. Just 1 point here, technically. 11 points here to get more health and physique. Maxing out this to get the armor absorption. And then when you look in Arcanist, and of course Blitz. I want to probably put more points into Blindside to get more crits. So if I were to do anything, it'd probably be something like taking 2 points from here. Possibly removing Counter-Strike. Yeah, that's probably it that I can do. Might even remove this because it just doesn't really help anything. And then just pumping more points into Blindside. The reason to put points into Blindside is just for that reduced target's defensive ability, so I crit more. But I'm not sure about that. As far as devotions go, it's kind of a defensive setup more than anything else. I get my RR with Arcane Bomb. I get Dryad's Blessing with Warcry. And then I use Phoenix with Force Wave, and Phoenix gives me that damage absorption, or that flat damage absorption. Crab gives me damage absorption. I get healing from Giant, and that, and that. I get healing from Chariot. It's like a super defensive setup for this build. I'm getting up to, what is it? It's only got like 340 health regeneration. I could probably put some better rings on here instead, but again, this is just with nothing else on. And yeah, it looks really fun. It looks really fun to play. 3200 armor to start with as well. And a lot of like absorption, so I think it'd be pretty solid. This is like my one that I'm really leaning towards. And the last one is the Archon. This is how it's just my leveling piece. It's just like start with two-handed Primal Strike until you can farm the Archive. And once you can farm the Archive, swap over to Virus Might, and then farm with Virus Might until you get the Skybreaker Circlet. And then just Virus Might all the way until you swap to the build. And the build was going to look something like this, using the Troll Ice Club to get Permanent Wind Devil. Aegis of Men here is just kind of a skill proc I'm not really using it for a main thing. It's just a skill proc. And I'm using the conduit to turn the Guardians cold as well. So this is going to be it's a cold player scaled pet. So I've got like 4 Guardians, and I've got 2 Wind Devils, and they're all doing 100% cold damage. I'm using Chain Lightning, which is 100% cold damage, as kind of my filler spell. And then I've got Aegis of Menhir, Grasping Vines as things to proc devotions. And pet attack on the bar because player scaled pets suck. This is the other one that I'm really thinking about. Farming the conduit is kind of a pain in the butt, but it's not that hard to get. You just got to farm up the materials, and farming on a Oathkeeper is not that hard. Well, let's look at the skills first. See, just Virus Might, just running around something really quickly. Focusing on Guardians is one of the main skills. Just one-pointing Aegis and all of its things, so it bounces and you can proc the devotions. Getting OA. Having my safety net with this. On Shaman is the same thing. Just focusing on Wind Devils. I should probably put more points into Stormcaller's pack to get more percent cold damage. I'm still looking at that. I'm using this specifically to get the 15% reduced target's elemental resistance from the metal. So this is just kind of a quick, you know, just a spell to get a thing. And it also procs one of my devotions. Looking at the devotions, yeah, I'm using Grasping Vines to proc Dryad. Guardians are going to be giving me Fumble and Impaired Aim here. Oh no. I'm pushing up to this, and I'm using Seal of Skies, I believe. Yeah, Seal of Skies to proc Blizzard. So I do need crit. Two-handed. I don't know if I'm going to take this, actually. I might remove Kraken on this build, because it doesn't really help that much, because it's attack speed. It's more attack speed than cast speed. So it's like 5% cast speed, 5% cast speed, 70% all damage, 5% movement speed. That's kind of nice. 4% Fizz Res, 15% crit. But it does do good affinity, so yeah, I'm not determined on that. Of course, going for Hyrian or whatever, getting Wind Devil with Rumor, getting Crab, getting Elemental Storm on Rowan's or on Aegis of Menhir. Yeah, and that's just a really quick version, and like it's a player scaled pet build, so the pets are immortal. They're going to be doing 90% of your damage, and when you're farming things, you can just throw Chain Lightning. You've got a large amount of health, decent Fizz Res starting point. Like you got 22% Fizz Res as your starting point. Armor is very low. I'm also using like the gear, the faction gear. That's why my armor is also so low. But yeah, it's a good starting point for the thing. I believe you could, you know, build this up pretty high. You might want to pick up some lifesteal, maybe on the gloves. Just like 10% lifesteal would be pretty big for this build. Cast speed helps. Attack speed also helps on this build. Because of the Guardians and the Wind, like the Guardians, because Guardians scale off of attack speed, I believe. Then our cold damage is 2,000 without any, you know, augments or anything, and we're using a conduit, so it'll probably get to 2,600 really easily. And 2,600 is kind of where you want to be at on a lot of these builds, because with 2,600 damage, you can clear most things. Frostburn, 1,800, so the Frostburn is going to actually do pretty good damage as well. So right now my biggest thing change is between this one and this one until something comes out. But those are my 3 starter builds that I'm thinking about starting with. I'll see y'all next time.